Hi, it's Alistair of Electric Scotland. Doing my introduction to my weekly newsletter for July 20th, 2018. First, I should say that our community is still down. It's really unacceptable. It should be down for that length of time. But what it's made me do is rethink what I'm doing with the site, and I've decided that I'm going to try and move forward to find a new hosting company for my site, because clearly Steve's no longer able to handle these things. I mean, for example, he said the other night there that he was getting a friend round to see if he could figure out how to fix the problem we have. Well, you know, at the end of the day, he should have been doing daily backups. So, I mean, he just needs to restore a backup. We might have lost a couple of messages, but that would be it. And we would have been back up and running, but clearly he hasn't been doing backups. So I don't know. I think he's kind of lost the plot, unfortunately. So I've been talking to a company in Vancouver, For Good Hosting it's called, and they're just looking to see where they can handle my front page extensions, which I need to publish to the site through my front page program. They think they can handle it. They're just trying to put a firewall around it, because apparently there are an odd security concerns, and so if they can lock me in, they're willing to do it. But the other nice thing was they said they'd be willing to take a look at this 500 server error that we're getting. And I said, just get your tech guy to send us the admin passwords and login details so we can get in to take a look for you, and we'll see if we can help you fix the problem. Trouble is, I can't get hold of Steve, and he's not responding to phone calls or email messages, so I don't know what's going on. So it's really unacceptable at the end of the day. So this is what I'm looking to do, is transfer all our domains to that company and get them to host us. So down the road a little bit, it might take a few weeks to do all this, but we're definitely going to have a new setup, that's for sure. So anyway, as we're still down, don't forget that you can always read our... I've had quite a few emails in saying what's happened to the newsletter. But remember, if you actually go to our website, you'll see newsletters in the menus in the top line. Just click on that, and because we archive all our newsletters, and as soon as I announce the newsletter, it goes up on the website. So if you just scroll down that page, you'll see all the old ones there. But obviously you'll see the latest one if you scroll further down. Just click on that and a PDF version of the newsletter will come up. I know for people in our community, they like to actually read the newsletter there, because they can comment on anything that comes out. So I think that's why perhaps you're not so keen on not being able to read it in the community where I've been posting it up. I will say that I probably won't be putting, well, I might. I'll see whether I put these ones I'm missing up. But I might just leave the two, because the PDF files are there. But what I might do is put a reference in the first one I can put up in the community, so you can click to go read the PDF versions. Anyway, I'm sorry for all the hassles, and I can say that I am now working on the principle that Steve's no longer capable of really looking after our sites, so I have to do something to make sure they're properly looked after in the future. Okay, so that's that news out the road. As far as the newsletter is concerned, I'm announcing also about the Clan Leslie Society International. They're having a gathering of their clan in Scotland in 2020. So I've given you a wee announcement they've made, and if you're interested in that, you need to contact them and tell them that you're interested, because they're going to start by getting a accommodation organised and stuff like that. Okay, so after all that, on to the news stories that I've picked for you this week. And the first news story is a bit of a departure, because it's Square Sausage Ice Cream goes on Edinburgh Hotel menu. I thought, Square Sausage Ice Cream? I can't even imagine how that would taste. But I must confess, I'd quite like to try it. It says, dairy firm Glen has joined forces with Apex Hotels to reinvent the breakfast dish. So I thought you might be interested in reading that. I was certainly interested when I read that. If you had square sausage ice cream, can't believe it. The next story I picked is oldest Highland bagpipes in existence to be played at the clan meeting. And actually it's the clan meeting of the Clan MacIntyre, which I just think is happening about now, in fact, in Scotland. It says the oldest Highland bagpipes in existence, which rang out at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, are to be played for just the fourth time in 200 years. So that'll be quite an event now. I hope we get a good video of it. Then the next story is, how can the world's best small country be Europe's drug death capital? I mean, when I read that, I thought, that's terrible, and I had to read it, you know. It says, last week, we learned that Scotland is the drug death capital of Europe. It's the latest cultural feather in the cap of the world's best small country, revealing that we continue to punch above our weight in some of the worst areas imaginable. Sad story, but I mean, I had to read it because I couldn't believe it, but it's just amazing what you read in these things. And also, MSP is shocked by poor and hungry Scottish pupils. It says a hard-hitting report published today by MSPs on Holyrood's education have called for poverty proofing measures to help the poorest students. I mean, it's terrible that the kids can't even get a decent meal before going. I mean, we've got to fix that. Then I put the next was the Brexit White Paper. It's where you can read the report. So if you want to read that was come out of Chequers, that'll give you a link to that. Then another story I saw which was quite interesting was nation's botanical treasures to go on display. A potato plant collected by Charles Darwin during his voyage in the Beagle is among botanical treasures to go on display to the public for the first time. So that looks to be a really good, so if you can get to that, it would be, I think it would be very interesting. But also there's some lovely pictures on the article, so it'd be worth a wee read there. Then Africa's World War I effort recognised the new Tate Modern exhibit. There have been many events to mark the centenary of World War I, but Africa has seldom rated a mention, so this redresses the balance there, and it's quite interesting, historically certainly. Then another one I picked was Smart Patch microneedles to revolutionise diabetes care. Its smart patches fitted with microneedles to deliver insulin could revolutionise treatment for diabetic suffering, scientists have claimed. So again, I'm a diabetic, so I was naturally interested in that. Then next story I picked was overwhelming 62% of voters want Theresa May to stand down as PM before the next general election. The poll presents misery for the PM, with 62% of all voters and 44% of Tories saying she's doing a bad job, and she's doing a horrendously bad job. I don't know why the reason she's still there is they can't find a replacement for her, unfortunately. So she'd probably do better just to resign and give us I mean, she's the worst Prime Minister in the history of British Prime Ministers, that's for sure. From the Anglosphere, we watch with horror as Britain bungles its Brexit chance to go global. It says, growing up in Australia during the 60s and early 70s, Britain loomed large in not only Australian national consciousness, but in our daily life. So it's a view of Brexit from Australia. Then the next story was Trump says biggest global foe is the EU. US President Donald Trump says the biggest global foe is the European Union. And again, this is why I'm trying to make a point here that he's bound to go after the EU, and if we're still in the EU, we're going to get caught up in it. So if we've left the EU, we wouldn't be there as he's putting a lot of tariffs on it. It just makes economic sense, really. Anyway, Sutherland site is UK's spaceport frontrunner. A peninsula in Scotland's north coast has been identified as the frontrunner in the race to become the site of the UK's first spaceport. So that's good news for Scotland. Next story I picked was Defence Secretary unveils a $2 billion plan for a British-made stealth plane that can fly either with a pilot or as a drone, after the UK was cut out of the French-German fighter plan project. So, okay, you cut us out, we'll do better than you guys, you know. Sensible family-loving teens behind pregnancy rate drop. So that was kind of interesting. It says teenagers are becoming less likely to have sex, preferring to spend time with their families, and having romantic relationships online, a study suggests. So I was quite interested in reading that one. I thought you might be as well. Another which I thought was interesting is Netflix effect poses challenge to British TV. So the video streaming services such as Netflix and Amazon Prime now have more subscribers than traditional pay TV services in the UK. New data from Ofcom has revealed. So that's, I mean, I can see if Netflix came out with a 24-hour news channel, I think they would really destroy the TV people. And then Britain is at a historic crossroads on the path to a global trade future. A decision to leave the EU is a call to fight protectionism and barriers in trade. This is the text of a speech delivered by International Trade Secretary Liam Fox this morning at the Royal Society in London. Next one was UK to consult public on a possible bid to join the Pacific Trade Pact. This Trade Secretary Liam Fox said on Wednesday he will consult the public about a possible bid to join a Pacific trade group that includes Canada, Australia and Mexico once Britain leaves the European Union. And the final story is the WTE Global Trading Bot and Mr. Bernier. It's by MP John Redwood, and he makes some interesting points. People are a bit confused about WTO. This hopefully explains it a little better for you. Then on to Electric Canadian. More copies of the Engineering Journal, the 1947 issue, is now available for you to read. Canada's Provinces, I put up volume 7, which is Dominion, Political Evolution, Part 2. It's quite interesting. It's from 1782 to Confederation. The defence of British North America against the United States was a subject of anxious precautions on the part of the imperial authorities and their representatives in the New World. So 1782 to the Crimean War, the system which they devised guaranteed the security of the country. The Great Republic during that period was a restless neighbour, grudging the British provinces their independence within the empire. Once there was actual war, and often there was rumours and threats of it, and in every crisis the British defensive arrangements were adequate. The period from the Crimean War to the end of the American Civil War saw a danger. The danger was greater, and the military system of the provinces was undergoing a change, which yielded defensive arrangements the adequacy of which, untested by real war, may seriously be doubted. After Confederation, the American pressures relaxed, and when Canada was again brought to feel the need for military preparations, the impetus to reorganization arose from conditions then current. So I think, there's a lot of really good, interesting stuff there, actually. So anyway, as I say, I'm bringing you those. Whether you read them or not is up to you, but I'm at least making them available. Then we got another copy of the Mining Journal. The one I've got up this time is 1894, which starts with a full table of contents. Before they had it's much easier to understand now. They've laid it out much better, the new version, basically. The next story I have is from Montreal to Vimy Ridge and beyond. The correspondence of Lieutenant Clifford Alwyn Wells, who's a BA of the 6th Battalion Canadian British Expeditionary Force. He writes about November 1915 to April 1917, and it's been edited by OCS Wallace, who's a DD and an LLD. So, an interesting account. And we are talking, I saw an article on the English CTV, Canadian television, someone saying that, we really need to get people to understand what Canada did in these wars. He said most people have no idea at all. And I quite agree. So these are good books to learn stuff. Then I've got the Canadian Portrait Gallery. This is in 4 volumes. What I loved about this book is it gives some really good portraits of the real good makers of Canada and other significant people. And there's a very good little bios with each one, of which you actually learn some pretty interesting information. So it's good to browse through. I'm not saying read every single one, but it's certainly interesting to browse through. And then I've got Canada's 100 Days. This is with the Canadian Corps from Amiens to Mons on August 8th to November the 11th, 1918. It's by JFB Livesey with portrait and maps. So again, it's this period during the war. So the previous letters took you up to 17. This is taking up to the finish of the First World War now. And then I have a book about Wakusta, or The Prophecy, in 3 volumes. As the introduction, it says, as we're about to introduce our readers to scenes from the scenes with which European is little familiarized, some few cursory remarks illustrative of the general features of the country into which we have shifted our labours may not be deemed misplaced at the opening of this volume. And he gives, it's quite a long introduction actually, but he gives you a kind of mind picture of Canada and how it looks like. And then to finish off, we've got an article by Conrad Black, which is the last, because he's now taking time off until I think it's Labour Day weekend before he'll come back. He said, the West is a mess, but Europe is where the real troubles are. Okay, on to Electric Scotland. I'm continuing with the Commonwealth of Australia. Now got up volume 17, which is 1833 to June 1835. So continues on with that governor. So only 2 more volumes to go with that series. Then I've got the Ancestry and Family of Sir Harry Lauder, 1870 to 1950. It's by Gregory Lauder Frost. He did actually put up an ancestry before, but he is a genealogist by trade, as it were, and a historian. And he's actually done a lot more work since he put up an article on our site about him. And this really corrects quite a few problems and inaccuracies that he had in his previous report. And it's a really good report, that. And I might add that the page you can read that on one, which I put to the foot of the page, is about our page on Harry Lauder, where I've got good videos, really good audios, and all the books that Harry Lauder actually wrote. And these books he wrote were really great, I have to say. I enjoyed reading them all. So it's a really, really good page of Sir Harry Lauder. I'm actually quite proud of that page. So I hope you go there and have a wee look around. Then I've got the Handbook of the British Army. It says with supplements on the Royal Air Force and civilian defence organisations. It was published in 1943. Part of the reason that I found that is that I got I can't remember if it was an email or a comment made, but while they were reading about the Air Force, this particular person said, yeah, but my relations were in the RAF, but they were the ground crew. He said, you not have anything about them. And that's what made me start to do a research. And this is where I found the Handbook of the British Army, which I thought would be useful to put up at the site in our Scottish Regiment section. But after that, I've also got the Aeronautical Engineering series on ground engineers, which actually does match what that person was looking for. And I have found another couple of books about it, but I've still to just flick through them. But if they're okay, I'll put these up next week. But that's a start anyway. Then continuing the work on the Middle East, I put up a book on Saudi Arabia by Sharifa Zuhar. I don't know if that's how you spell her name, but it's a 2011 PDF file, this one. It's a very good report, quite extensive, and I thought it would be a great introduction to Saudi Arabia for you. And so don't forget, my reason for doing this on the Middle East is that I'm going to try to use these books to try and find Scots that I can write about specifically. Then I've got a book about the life of James Ferguson. It says, in the brief autobiographical account and further extended memoir by Ebenezer Henderson. I've already got an account of James Ferguson, which was a good account, I have to say, but because I just came across this, I decided to add a link to this much larger account of him, because his autobiography was mainly about Scotland, and all about, I think, just about maybe 4 pages about his work in London, where he spent many years, I will say. So I thought the fuller book would be useful. And he also did a book about select mechanical exercises. He was quite famous for that book, so I found a copy of it, so I put a link on his page to that book if you would like to read it. And then the final one is Builders of Our Law During the Reign of Queen Victoria. It's by Edward Manson. It's the 2nd edition, published in 1904, so again, for those in the legal profession, you might well be interested in that. And then finally, the story of this week. The story tells you why I believe in a global Britain. And you really need to read this and become as enthusiastic as I am for our future outside the EU. That's what I said, hoping that you'll read it. But to be honest with you, in fact, I contemplated reading the thing because I just think it's brilliant. But I won't. I'll let you read it yourself on the site. But to be honest, he just quotes so many pieces of information that, I mean, having read it, I was re-enthused about the idea of having a global Britain. So I don't know why. It seems like I think it was in I can't remember. I don't know if it's Significant Scot or Skeptical Scot. That's it's a website called Skeptical Scot, and they wrote an article this week about how most Leave voters didn't actually vote to leave to get a global Britain. They voted to leave because they thought it would improve things domestically. but didn't really consider a global Britain as being viable. And apparently the majority feel that way, which I just don't even understand it. I can only think that they haven't been educated enough. But when I see the opportunities, they're just amazing. Anyway, there you go. Oops, well, I'll put a link to this below, and you can obviously get all the links to these stories. So thanks for listening, and I'll get this forward. Thanks. Bye. Hi,